no big deal. All right, the textbook, if you took Java 1 here, then the textbook's the same. That's good news, because it's an expensive book. So what are we going to be learning? Restated, write, compile, debug, and run Java programs using advanced concepts such as we've already heard this, advanced data types, abstract data types, inheritance, which I must have misspelled because it's underlined, and polymorphism, and graphical user interface development. And use industry standard Java development environments for debugging and, there are basically two that are used, probably about 80% of all Java development is done using one called Eclipse and one called Netbeans. Netbeans was created by Sun, the creators of the Java language. And I think they're spun off into their own group, but still. And then Eclipse is kind of more the open source. We support a lot of different things kind of thing, right? So you can install C++ and, other kinds of development environments in it. We use Netbeans in here. And honestly, you can get, C++ and other development environments going in Netbeans as well. This is the one we're going to use. They pretty much have feature parity. I know the forms designers and things like that in Netbeans, and so that's what we're going to use. It is an industry standard. This one may be used a little bit more just because, it's kind of intended for more programming languages, but you're not being shortchanged by using Netbeans. When you took Java 1, when you took beginner Java, you may not have used Netbeans. You may have used TextPad or Notepad++. That's totally cool. You like writing your programs that way, you can keep doing that. I still want you to install Netbeans. I want you to use it in class, and then you can make the decision, right? I want you to give it a try. And there are going to be certain programming assignments where you have to use Netbeans. And those are the graphical user interface, because we use the forms designer inside Netbeans. So your first homework assignment is to install Java, which I bet everybody already has, right? And to install Netbeans if you haven't. So, those of y'all who took it from other people, you are going to need to run out and grab Netbeans and install it. And it just installs cleanly on top of Java, and so configuration of it should not be hard. I have a document pointing to where I wanted you to download it from, I think. Grade scale's boring. 90%'s an A, 80%'s a B. Do I curve the grades? No, because usually I get like half the class making A's. That's to encourage you, right? I want to have a lot of A's. So please help me give you an A. If you come every day, if you do keep up on the homework, you do the quizzes, you're going to make it. You're going to make a good grade. A's and B's. I don't want anybody that scores below a B. All right. The grades are broken up like this. 10% of your grade is based on a final project, and that's supposed to be a chance where you get to do something where I don't tell you every single step. Right. I'll give you a project outline, or I'll give you a whole bunch of project ideas you can pick from. And those of you who took Java 1, the Java 2, my project ideas are very similar, although I plan on adding others so that you all have more to pick from. Hopefully you can find a better way of implementing it than you did in Java 1, and please don't repeat a project from Java 1. But anyways, that's 10% of your grade. The rest of it is split into 3 parts. Every time you come in, you're going to turn in something, because we're going to go through some kind of tutorial where I'm walking y'all through something, typing something in. You have a choice. If I'm sitting here typing a program in, you can either be typing along, getting it to work, in which case I'll stop periodically and I'll wander around and I'll make sure that everybody's got it all working, right? If you have syntax errors or whatever. But if you don't think you learn well by frantically typing along, all you have to do is at the end of class, upload something into the Dropbox saying that you were here and that it was an awesome lecture, right? Okay, you can leave that last part off. But still, prove that you were here, upload something, you'll get credit for it. And as long as you put something in every Dropbox for every day that we're here, instantly, boom, you've got 30% of your grade. So, that's kind of nice. Then you do have homework. Surprise, surprise. And then we have chapter quizzes and we have exams. So each one of those is about a third of the remaining, right? And so if you skipped your final project, that'd bring you down a letter grade. And otherwise, it's all, a third each for those things. So important information. Your program must at least compile to get any credit. Everybody knows what a syntax error is by now. If you give me code and it doesn't compile, I may look at it to figure out what's wrong with it, but I may not look too long. And you're not going to get any credit for it. You'll get like 1 out of 100 points. So man, did I fail that assignment? No, almost always what I'll do is when I give you feedback on your homework, it'll say, here's what's wrong with it. Please revise it and resubmit for more credit. Right. And if you eventually get it right, you know, you might have to fix it 2 or 3 times, but you'll probably get bumped up to an A. Right. So it's to your advantage. Check your feedback. If you don't get 100%, see what I said was wrong with it. Now, if it's 1%, it's probably just because it flat out, I could not compile it. There's something we need to work out between us. But otherwise, you know, maybe it did half of the stuff, but it didn't do the other half of the stuff that I wanted you to do. Or maybe there were 2 pages of the assignment, you only did the first page, and so you got 50% or whatever. See the feedback. It'll say, it doesn't do this. Here's the reason why. Please revise and resubmit. And that does not follow the same schedule, right? If I say something is due on, you know, March 1, and you upload your answer by March 1, and then it takes me a week to grade it, and then I ask you to revise it, it's not a, quote, late assignment just because your revision doesn't happen by March 1, right? You can't go back in time. So, you know, kind of past that point, the deadlines aren't as important. Does that make sense, right? If you have to revise it, the deadline's not, you know, the deadline is passed, it's okay. Just keep, you know, keep working with me on it. Make the changes, and then eventually you'll get it up to an A. Late homework assignments, otherwise, you got to turn in your homework, you know, on time. If you don't, you lose 10% per week. First week's 10%, second week, you know, is 20%, the third week is 30%, and after a month, you know, 0 on it. Feel free to upload it, but you're not going to get any credit for it. The reason for that, well, really, I ought to be harsher on that, right? Because if you're more than 2 weeks late on something, and you probably don't understand the material, which means you probably don't understand what I'm lecturing about this time, right? And so it's kind of a cascade effect, right? You know, you lose track here, and then each week gets worse. So do try to keep up. You know, I'll give you a day's grace period or whatever. Generally, everything's due a week from the day that I talk about it, right? If I give you a homework assignment tonight, it's going to be due midnight of Wednesday next week. Now, or if you're a day late because you needed to ask me a question and you needed 1 more evening to work on it, I'm not going to count off, right? But otherwise, we follow that scale. Now, this says the video tutorials, but really, the daily lectures are the ones that can be turned in up to 4 weeks late with no penalty. Now, I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't say that, right? You know, I ought to make it, do it within 1 week to encourage people to do it. But what these are is every time we're here, I videotape it, and then I upload it to YouTube, and we have a playlist of all the videos, so that if you miss a day, you can watch the video. You know, you get credit for watching a video and uploading something from the video. Either type in the program as the video plays, or if that's inconvenient for you, there's a video form you can fill out that says, you know, please name a couple things that you learned from the video. You don't have to write the programs at home if that's a pain. On the other hand, if you feel like it, if you find it a good exercise, you can do that. But just get that done as quickly as possible. Like if you miss a day, over the weekend, watch it. Now, don't let it coast forever, right? Because you needed to learn that material. So I don't know why I'm so generous and say up to 4 weeks late. You have to complete at least 50% of the programming assignments in order to pass the class, even what your other grades are, right? If you earned, you know, if you came every single time, so you had a daily grade or video tutorial grade of 30%, and then you managed to ace all the exams. I had somebody do that, and they never did a day of homework, you know. They still had a 60% in the class. They thought they were going to make a D and maybe turn in 1 homework assignment at the very end. And I had to tell them, no, remember the syllabus. You have to do at least half the homework or else you're not going to pass. That should not be a problem. If you are struggling with the homework and you're not getting it in, you really need to be talking to me about it. I will work with you all over time in order to make sure you can do the programming assignments. And the fact that all of y'all aced, you know, beginning Java means that you're going to be able to handle this stuff as well. So, submitting homework. I'd like for you to take a screenshot of your program successfully running. So upload that and also your source code. Now, when you upload your source code, I don't care if you zip the entire project or just give me the .java files. The only exception will be when we do the graphical user interface one with the forms designer. Please go ahead and just zip the entire project. But I'll say that very clearly when we do that, because otherwise I can't see the form as you've designed it. I can just run it and make sure it works. And I like being able to see the form as well. Otherwise, you can just give me the .java files. If you're in the habit of giving me more, that's fine. If you want to give me the entire project folder. Those of y'all who haven't used Netbeans are probably going, what's a project folder? So yeah, we'll cover that. It's not a must for you to give it to me. If it becomes a must or when it becomes a must, I'll tell you. Go away. You too. Why is that still open? All right. So please submit the screenshot. If you don't submit a screenshot, you get partial credit at best. If there's syntax errors in it, you only get 1 point. I'll tell you to revise it, and you can get more credit up. If you don't meet the requirements of the assignment, you get partial credit. And I'll say, please revise it, right? Because I want to give you an A on it. So late assignment, we've already talked about that. Do I have duplicate stuff, or have I just missed my scrolling? There's no deduction for attendance, right? If you miss a day, I'm not going to count off. The way you do get counted off is if you miss a day and then don't watch the video and upload something into the folder for that day, right? Because we always upload something every day with me. That would be, a debit to your score. The AW policy, if you don't show up for the first, 2 weeks of class, well, obviously you're here. But in general, anytime you don't show up for the first 2 weeks of class, you would be dropped from the class, and AW would be recorded on your transcript, never to be removed. So I'm going to scroll past some of the stuff. We're all adults, and we're not going to be putting stuff on our screen that distracts the people behind them, like watching Twitch videos or YouTube videos or playing games. Please don't put anything on your screen. Please don't be typing away too furiously on your phone. Put your phone on mute, and if you are typing a lot of messages on your phone, also silence the buzzing so that it doesn't sit there buzzing and annoying the person sitting next to you. I see y'all have spaced yourselves out so that nobody has any seatmates. That's fine, but if you're working on the stuff, the daily stuff that I'm typing up here, it's kind of nice if y'all can look at each other's screens and help each other. Obviously, that's not going to happen, so whatever. All right. Expect me to provide clear instructions for assignments. If the instructions are not clear, if you don't understand what I'm asking you to do, it means I've made a mistake. So tell me. And I've had people just struggle, with the assignment rather than ask me what I meant. And then I realize that I left something out or I miswrote it or whatever, and I feel dumb, and they wasted a lot of their own time. So go ahead and ask me. If something doesn't make sense, ask me for help. Don't think, oh, it's because I'm dumb, I don't understand it, and I'm embarrassed to ask. Please ask me. People ask me the more questions, they become the teacher's pets. I try to grade everything within a week's notice of due assignments. I always give 2 weeks notice of exams. Haven't decided whether we're going to have 2 or 3 exams this semester. We may have a midterm and a final, or 2 midterms and a final. The date of the final is already fixed in stone. But, the date of the midterms you need to figure out. I'll probably tell y'all pretty soon what it's going to be. Certainly get 2 weeks notice. All right, academic integrity. What this means is if somebody asks you for your work, don't give it to them. Don't turn in anybody else's work. If you need help from somebody, it's best to ask me. But I wouldn't complain if you were working on your work, when you were stuck, and when Lynn came over here, and kind of eyeballed it and said, well, you're just not opening the file like that, right? A light amount of helping each other is okay. Not turning in somebody else's work. Quite often what people do is they ask, hey man, can I look at your code? Could you just email it to me and then I'll fix whatever's wrong with my program? And I haven't even started, right? And so I take that program and hopefully I rename it to have my name on it, but maybe I don't even do that. Maybe I'm that clueless. And I submit it and pretend it's mine. The fact that y'all are all in the advanced Java course makes me think that's not going to happen. More likely is that you find a program on the internet and upload it. Like one of the project ideas was Hangman. And It was insane how many people submitted, not only from the Java course, but from the Python courses, how many people just went out and found a Hangman program from the internet and uploaded it as though they'd written it. And, you know, when I look at it, it's clear that it's been written by somebody with 20 years of programming experience, right? They're doing things in that program that I don't even understand. So that's academic dishonesty. Yes, Google when you get stuck. Everybody Googles when you get stuck, but don't upload a program that you find on the internet. You know, instead, find out what they're doing, right? You know, this is how you open a file. This is how you display something. Find out what they're doing and put those parts of the program into your own. Kind of like writing a term paper. If you quoted, like if you bought a term paper off somebody off the internet and you uploaded it, that's total cheating, right? If you copied a big chunk of it and you didn't give any credit, that's also cheating. And I don't care so much about credit as long as you're just making it your own. You ought to be able to sit down with pencil and paper and write out your program after you've written it if I asked you to do that. And if I think you cheated, it's possible that I would do that. I'd say, okay, please come in. I want you to rewrite your program with a pencil. And so that's not going to happen because I'm not going to suspect any of y'all of doing that because you're not going to do it, right? Y'all understand. Also, no texting each other or sending Gmail messages to each other during exams. When I say things like this, it's because it has happened. I'm not just making this up out of blue sky. If you do cheat, it's bad news. You get an F for the assignment. If it was an exam, that kills your grade totally, right? And then it gets reported to the division dean, and it gets reported to the director of student conduct. You might fail the course, you might get expelled. It's a drag to have all that happen, especially to people who copied their projects off the internet, the Hangman projects, because they'd gone to school for 16 weeks, right? And they may have been doing great, and they just got desperate, and they did, it blew my mind. I may have to remove the Hangman project from the list of options because so many people did that. And when I say so many people, it was 4, right? Out of about 80 students, but still, that's way too many. Okay, so Americans with Disabilities, there's a place you can go if you need help. Like if you have, if you need to sit on the front row or you need a recording device, I don't care if you videotape me or whatever, or you need extra time on exams, dyslexia, whatever you need, you go and talk to these people. They fill out a worksheet with you. You bring the worksheet to me, and I'm happy to help you. If you need counseling, and what do I mean by need counseling? If there's something going on in your life that's really hard, right? You're in a relationship that's gone totally off the rails, or you've experienced a death in the family or whatever, right? Stressful events, anything that's interfering with your ability to work. Go and talk to the counselors. They're good people. I've talked to them. They're awesome. Plus it's free. That's even cooler. I'm going to let you read just about the rest of this yourself. Exam schedule. We meet on Thursdays at 5:40, so that means that our exam is going to be on the Thursday, May 16th. Alrighty. Just because I rushed through it doesn't mean you can't read the syllabus more carefully. I strongly encourage you to. Any questions so far? Okay? Alrighty. So we're going to talk about classes. I don't think I'm going to even pop up the PowerPoint. I think I'm just going to open up Netbeans, and for those of y'all who haven't used it, it'll be a little bit of a new experience. And we're going to create a class. And I'm going to take some notes on the side with Notepad. And like I said, if you don't want to use Netbeans, that's totally okay. There's lots of different Java development environments, and some of them do really cool things, like create, UML diagrams from your code just automatically and stuff like that. If you feel like using something else, that's totally cool. But your homework is to install Netbeans, and that's what we use in class. You can also do it the other way, with TextPad or whatever, but there are times when we do the graphical user interface development that I do want you to use Netbeans. And we may as well do it together this time, just so that you get your toes in the water. So I'm going to go to the search box. I'm going to type Netbeans. I'm going to dock it, pin it to the taskbar, pin it to the start menu, So I never have to open the search box again. And then I'm going to launch it. And we wait, and we wait. And we wait more. Hopefully it's just because it's the first time that Netbeans has been run on this machine. But otherwise I need to remember to just launch it, you know, as soon as I start lecturing and let it go in the background. So that's taking a while. That's taking a long while. Is it already loaded for y'all? Y'all's machine's faster than mine. All right, that's cool. Students should get the good stuff. But I wouldn't mind if it was working by now. Okay, so what is a class? The class, a class, is a blueprint, a template, although templates have very specific meanings, but we, in programming terms, but as a general term, it kind of applies here, right? It's a template for an object. Well, what's an object? An object is a collection of data. And it's a list of functions, although you know that in Java we call them methods that act upon that data. You know, you can make a class that has no data in it. You can make a class that has no methods in it. It's okay. A class with no methods in it would be what a C programmer would call a structure, a struct, right? They probably wouldn't make it a class. But we have one keyword, class, right, for everything. So, but usually, the reason you're making a class is because you want some kind of data and you want some functions that manipulate that data. And I always give the same examples, like a class to represent a sphere, and we're going to add some methods that calculate the volume of the sphere, or something like that. Sorry if I repeat an example that we did last semester, but like I said, a little bit of this is going to be review. So when I say collection of data, what is that? Variables. So my short definition of a class is it's a collection of variables and the functions and methods that act upon it. But that's not strictly true. The class is not the collection of variables. It's the definition. It's the template. It's the blueprint. An object is a collection of variables and the methods that act on it. And the class is a template, the blueprint for the object. That's my definition. Not necessarily the book definition. All right, so Netbeans is loaded. We're going to create a project. I'm going to do a new project. I'm going to choose Java, Java application, and I always come up here and start to type in a project name, and now that's not where you do it. So then I get annoyed, erase that, and I click Next. Who here has not used Netbeans? How slowly do I need to go through? Okay, good, good. I don't want to belabor this if nobody's had it. But so I'm going to give it a name. You can call it whatever you want. I label my lectures by, I enumerate them by letter. The first lecture is lecture A, the second one's B, and so on. Whereas homework assignments are numbered. That's how it's easy to distinguish between them. If I say program C as opposed to homework 4, you know them, rather than saying, you know, lecture 4 versus homework 4. Anyway, so since this is lecture A, I'm going to call my program, my project, lecture A. And down here it says create main class. If you wanted to create an empty project, you would deselect that. I don't see anything wrong, usually, with creating a main class. There are specific instances when we're creating the graphical user interfaces that we will deselect that. Notice that it's going to say lecture A dot lecture A. We'll see what that means. This is going to be the project name, and this is going to be the .java file name. If you don't like using the project keyword, which will be new to y'all perhaps, for the TextPad users. Anyway, I'm going to leave it like this. You're going to see what the default is. I think yours is going to work the same way. So if it says lecture A dot lecture A or whatever you called it, that's totally cool. And the next time we create it, maybe we'll delete the first part of this so that it won't create a so-called project folder. All right, and when I was saying project, I meant to summon up the word package. So what has happened? It's created a package called lecture A, which is just a directory. It's a subdirectory. And it's put our .java file inside that subdirectory. It's fine that way, but it means that if you open this file in TextPad later and compiled it, it wouldn't run. It would not compile. So I tend to delete that, and I recommend that you delete it. And what it's going to do is then it will take it out, once we're done with it, out of the lecture A package, the lecture A subdirectory. So just as a matter of course, I tend to do that unless I'm writing a complex project and I really want things broken up into separate subfolders. Our code, at this point is certainly not going to be that complicated. And then there's a lot of other comments too that really annoy me. I mean, too much visual noise, so I get rid of those as well. All right, so you saw what I did. I deleted the package keyword. Oops, now I have an error. It says incorrect package. Now when Netbeans detects an error, it flags it, both with a red mark on this side and a little helper over here that you can click on, and it'll offer some suggestions. Now don't just randomly choose a suggestion and make the error go away. Understand what the suggestion is doing. But in this case, the suggestion is pretty easy. One is move the class to the correct folder. It'll take it out of that subdirectory because it's no longer part of a package. Or change the package declaration to lecture A. I could do that, and then boom, it's right back where it was. It did fix it just by adding it again. But I don't want to do that. I completely want nothing to be in sub-packages, so I'm going to click it and say move class to correct folder. And notice it took it out of that subfolder and pushed it up here. So I could have done that anyways, right? I could have just grabbed it, dragged it, like I just put it in the subfolder. And now our word's back there. And if I take it out of the subfolder and drag it here, the refactor, it's back into the default package. And the user interface Netbeans, when you create stuff in the default package, it'll say, shame, shame, you shouldn't be putting stuff in the default package. Nah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Unless you're creating things with multiple programs in it, lots of different classes and stuff like that, there's really no reason to be sticking things in packages. All right, I'm going to delete lots of comments. Leave the one with your name, though. This is lecture A. First program this semester. Something like that. Okay, so this has created a class, right? But it's kind of a special class. It doesn't have any data. And all it has is a static method, which is different than a normal method, which is known as an instance method. This is what's known as a class method because it exists kind of outside of anything, kind of like a static variable if you've never used a static variable. I want to create an honest-to-goodness class that we then use in this class. So this class including the main method, is going to be the client or the driver. Different books use different terms. I believe this textbook calls it the driver for the class that we're about to make. Okay, so I'm going to go up to default packages and do new Java class. And what are we going to make today? Let's make a Starship. We're going to come up with some attributes for Starship. And see here, it's yelling at me. Don't place the Java classes in the default package. Well, I'll do it if I want to. You always did with TextPad, so why not now? Okay, so what we need to do is we need to come up with some attributes with some data that defines our Starship. Right. I'm going to come up with silly ones. Like int number of engines. Inglines? Engines. How many engines our Starship has? Right? And then double max warp or max speed. Something like that. And int crew, right? The number of people in the crew. And we need to know the name of the spaceship. So string name. And I'm assuming that y'all know the difference between what an int is and what a double is and what a string is. Okay, so we have some data. We could come back over here and create a Starship, fill in those values. Why not? I didn't make them private. I haven't added a constructor. I haven't done anything special at all. So I'm just going to come back over here to lecture A, which is going to be my driver. And within the braces, where it says to do, and create a Starship. So I'm going to create a Starship called Sam. We're going to follow our standard instantiation syntax. Starship Sam equals new Starship, parentheses in parentheses, because there's no custom constructor, no parameterized constructor. There's nothing to pass in between the parentheses. All right. Sam dot crew. Sam's got it. The Starship Sam has 100 people in it. They have a max speed of whatever, right? 2e to 6. 2e to 7, right? They go 20 million meters per second or whatever. And then Sam dot number of engines. You've got 2 engines. Kind of like the Enterprise or something like that. And Sam dot name is equal to, quote, the good ship Sam. All right, so we've created an object. It's a collection of data. It has some information about it. I'm thinking about adding one more variable, which is how much fuel it's got. And maybe we're going to need a current speed indicator. You know, we have a maximum speed, but we don't have a current speed. Sounds like 2 more pieces of information. So let's go back to the Starship and add fuel, double fuel, and we're not defining units and stuff like that, so this is all totally silly. And then double speed or velocity. Velocity. Now, I could provide default values for all these. I could say that every time you create a Starship, we're going to assume that it's got 1 engine, that it's got a max speed of whatever. If I leave those defaults off, it assumes 0 for everything. That's good enough for me. So what might we want the Starship to be able to do? We might want to be able to accelerate it, right? So its speed starts off at 0. And then we might, I don't know, add crew to it, subtract crew from it. I say we just work on the movement of it. Maybe we're kind of making this a game to where, you know, we have a certain number of turns or whatever it's moved. But let's leave that out until we come up with a good idea for that. So I'm going to come back over to lecture A. And by the way, if you feel like it, you can try to break these out so that they kind of exist side by side, like that. I tend not to really do that because I keep my font huge for y'all to see. But if you like seeing stuff side by side, you can mess with the positioning of the windows. All right, so Sam's velocity at this point is 0. And then Sam's fuel at this point is 100. Starts off at 100% or whatever that means. Now here's how I would like for it to work. I'm thinking out, I'm kind of mapping out the functions that I want to be able to use. Now these aren't going to work because I haven't added the functions yet, right? But sam.accelerate. I'm not going to type the whole word accelerate. I'm just going to type accelerate by maybe, you know, 1,000, right? And then sam.coast, you know, travel without applying the engines, you know. I know that y'all know enough about physics that the way that the spaceships in Star Wars move is absurd because they keep the engines on constantly, which means that they would go faster and faster and faster and faster, but whatever. So we're going to say that you accelerate, you turn the engine on, and then you coast for a while. And then we're going to coast again. And then we're going to deaccelerate. Maybe even come to a stop. Should we put a stop command? Yeah, I like a stop command to remove our speed all the way down to 0. So what's going to happen? Maybe every time we call accelerate, it uses up a certain amount of fuel. And then every time we call coast, it uses up that same amount of fuel. Maybe I should have set the fuel to a lot larger than 100 because I'm not going to be trying to figure out what percentages are. I'm going to change that fuel to 10,000 since I'm making this up as I go along. Okay, so now we have 4 functions that are curious about. How about a status function so that we can figure out what our current state is? Number 1, give me a status report. So sam.status. This is our goal. This is what we wanted to have. We can create what's known as a UML diagram. And a UML diagram is a list of all the data and all the functions. Now, none of these functions need to return anything. We haven't made anything that needs to return anything. We haven't added any gets, right, that return data. In fact, we haven't done any data encapsulation at all, right? Everything is just a public variable. It's actually not a public variable, but it's very close. It has package definition, meaning that everything else in the same package can get a hold of it. And this is in the same package as that other class, so they can access every element of that object. We're running out of time. Hate the day that I have to give the syllabus. All right, let's go ahead and implement these things, and then the lecture's probably going to come to a stop. So I'm going to go back over to the Starship, and we're going to implement these methods. Now notice that these cute little error messages come up. It'll offer to create the methods for me. I could just go boom, 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 and it would create all the methods for me. I'm going to do that for one of them, but not all of them. I'm going to do that for Excel. But then I'm going to add the rest of them by hand. I just want to show you that the functionality is there. Now, like I said, don't go and recklessly click the errors and choosing something to make the error go away. You will wind up completely breaking your project at a certain point when you do that. Like if it says create new class, never choose that unless you absolutely want to. Give you an example of that. I don't have time for examples. I shouldn't be doing this. But string S, right? Say, don't type this. I'm going to delete this line pretty soon. Now, you know what I've done wrong. What have I done there?
Lowercase.
Right. That's supposed to be uppercase. But, you know, I'm lazy. I go, well, I see an error. Woohoo, create class, string. Awesome. It's fixed. No, it's not, right? The string is not going to be able to work at all. So don't choose create class unless you absolutely, absolutely, absolutely know that you want to do that. So did I say I was going to add the stop command to it? Yeah, so I'm going to click on the error message for create method stop. But like I said, I'm going to add the rest of it in my head now. Ooh, the error went away. But what was the stop method supposed to do? It had no idea, of course. So all it did is it filled in an exception. So if you ran it, which, you know, we could do, run early, run often. Okay, can't run it because the other methods aren't created yet. But anyways, you see this, and even if it was possible for it to compile and run, as soon as it hit that, it would stop the program, right? So in order to actually implement this, we would delete that and fill it with some good data, right? So why don't we do this? When we hit stop, we're just going to set our speed down to, our velocity down to 0. So this dot velocity equals 0. Boom, we come to a complete stop like we hit a brick wall. Pretty neat. Not very realistic. All right, what was the name? Is that font big enough for y'all in the back? Could it be useful if I boosted it up a notch, or are you okay with it? Okay, all right. So what was another one? What's another method?
Excel.
Excel? Excel? Yeah, Excel. All right, so void Excel, but it took a parameter. And it's going to change velocity, which is declared as a double, so I'm going to make this one a double as well. And I'm not coming up with a real good name for what this variable ought to be. I'm just going to be totally lame and call it X. All right, and so what does that do? It increases the velocity by that much. I could give it a better name, amount. All right, so amount plus equals, wait, no. This dot velocity equals amount. No, plus equals amount. We're speeding up. And I see one more variable that I did not create, which is going to be distance traveled. So let's tack that on as well, right? Just like your odometer, distance. We're going to start it off at 0. But each time we hit that coast function call, it's going to add our current velocity to the distance, right? You're driving 60 miles per hour. We coast for an hour. We've gone 60 miles. So besides Excel and stop, we had some other functions, some other methods. Coast and status. 2 more to go. So void coast. It doesn't take any parameters. It doesn't take any data. It doesn't accept any arguments. So what's it going to do? It's just going to add our velocity to the current distance. So this dot distance plus equals velocity. And we need a status report. Why don't we just say the name, our current velocity, and the distance traveled. Apparently, I never wound up using fuel, right? We may even wind up just deleting that, but okay. So, void status. Let's make a string that contains all of our status information, and then we can print it out. It's going to be the equivalent of a toString method if you've learned what that is, kind of. But so we probably should have implemented it thus, but we did not. We could go back and do so. So string s equals string.format starship, not startship, starship %s velocity equals %d because it's a floating point no, percent F. And then distance equals percent F. Backslash n. And we can leave the backslash n off. We can add that with the print line if you want.
Actually, can you make the font like one side?
Yeah, let's make the font bigger. I was kind of doubtful about that. Started looking small to me.
It's just that the orange text.
The orange is hard to read. Yeah. Can we fix that? Can we go down here to string and pick a better color for strings than orange?
I mean, once you make the size bigger, it's fine. It's just-
I'm going to make it blue. It's going to look like functions, but that's okay. It is easier to read. All right. So, there we go. And after the quote, we need to start passing in our parameters to print these things. So we're going to print this dot name, comma, this dot velocity, comma, and this dot distance. Then we just need a print statement. System.out.println. Status, colon, space, end quote, plus S. Can we just print it out? All right, and so after all of that stuff, the good ship Sam is traveling at 1,000 whatever, and it's gone 2,000 whatevers, right? Parsecs, light years, whatever. So our class is working. It's not a perfect class. It's not encapsulated. It doesn't have a constructor, but it is a class, right? And we have functions that modify the data. And so I'm happy enough with that. Anybody getting any syntax errors that you would like my eyeballs on? It's working for everybody. Got rock and rolling. Yeah. It's good for you. This dot. Start, no, here. Plus equals. Okay, then choose velocity. Let's take it out. Extract. Sorry. And then close parentheses. No, there's no parentheses. What are we talking about? So just semicolon, right? Okay, why did it not the statement? This dot distance. Let's put a dot between these two. If y'all haven't seen it as a keyword before, I'm going to have to explain what it does. Outline symbol. Please add one for distance. So I added double space distance. Okay, so the formatting statement, we'll fix that in a minute. For now, let's just make the print status just print the message. Right, we'll comment all this stuff out. Just add a print line to print, status. Right, and then we'll go in and just fix that later in class. There's one more thing I've noticed, which is that there's a statement inside this. All right, let's come up here. Click on that. Let's see what that error is. Plastic red folder. Sure, why not? Go ahead. Just move it into that default package. Now let's click on that. It's probably going to say it's missing a closed parentheses. It's called lecture A_1, but our class is called Starship. So go ahead and let it do the renaming. So click on that, just like you were about to do. So now it's called Starship.java. We are good to go. Okay. Now we have all yours. Let's build it and see if it works. I may have to come back to you after the end of class and work on this with you together. But now I'm going to grab the mouse seat. Yeah, we have some stuff here that we're going to have to fix. Should have added this ourselves when we created the project. It doesn't seem to have. We have now. Retype that one dot and V. Well, there's no V. Well, they default to 0 anyway, so let's just leave that one alone. Maybe it'll just compile. That doesn't do anything, right? But it's okay. We'll fill in the details in just a minute. Alrighty, guys. I have a video that I want y'all to watch, which is another lecture over the same sort of concepts. Let's go take a look. Just because, you know, since we're not having 2 lectures a week, and I want to get our review over and done with quickly. All right, so there was a video A called Introduction to Netbeans and a Class. We have done that. That's what we just created. So I will correct the fact that this is probably pointing to another video to make it point to ours. This is where you're going to upload the .java file that you created into the coursework A folder. There's homework. Install Netbeans and turn in a Hello World type program, right? So yeah, you could create Hello World with TextPad and upload it to me right in 2 minutes. But don't do that. Go ahead and install Netbeans, please. Or upload a note explaining why you're not installing Netbeans. One or the other. That's the homework that's involved. Then there's a video for coursework B. This is optional to watch it. But I recommend you watching it. But if you look at the homework assignments and the homework assignments make sense, then go ahead and watch it. So I think I'll just call this one A2. No, I'm not going to change its name. It's going to get confusing. So that's the video for it. You're going to want to watch that. And let's look at the homework based on it, because we're going to actually have some programming homework. It should all be reviewed from your beginning Java class. If it is not, let me know, because we're going to have to do some more review, right? Okay. Now this homework here may be even something that you've written before if you've taken my class, my beginning class, because like I said, it really is review. So let's go and take a look at what it is. It's to write a rectangle class. That sounds pretty familiar. All right. Well, those are notes. That's not a homework assignment. Here's the homework assignment. Create a class called rectangle that has 2 member variables. They are instance variables named height and width. They should be encapsulated, but we haven't talked about encapsulation. But maybe the video does. I'm going to comment that out, or just say you don't have to do that. Right? They can be encapsulated if that's what you want to do. Let's make the font a little bit bigger. Add a get area method and a get perimeter method. Ask me for the formulas. You probably know how to calculate the area of a rectangle. It's height times width. You probably know how to get the perimeter. It's height plus width plus height plus width. But if you can't figure out the formulas, ask me. Text me a message. You have my phone number. Add a constructor that will set the height and the width. I'm going to say you can. If you don't know how to do that, then don't. I'll know at this point, how much more review we need to do. And then use this class in your client code in main to print out the area and perimeter of a rectangle that is 20 by 30. You don't have to ask the user for the width and the height. If you feel like making it that awesome, go ahead. Or you can just hard code the numbers 20 and 30. So that'll be the homework based on today's lecture and the video that is optional for you to watch. I strongly recommend those of y'all who haven't had me before, go ahead and watch this video. And if you're kind of wobbly on the idea of classes, even though you had me before, then watch it as well. That makes sense? Optional video, non-optional homework. You got to do the homework anyways. You may as well watch the video. Watch it this weekend. Let's look at the due date. I set a due date of February 3, which is not before next class. I really would like for y'all to get this little project done before then, so I'm going to revise the date. I'm going to revise the date, but don't go into a panic if you can't finish at that time because you really need more review. But I really would like for you to try to get, and I'm going to get rid of the second one. We're not going to do that one. Okay. So change the due date to be Wednesday of next time, along with installing Netbeans. It'll give you something to do, over the weekend and the next couple of days. For your homework, I don't care what development environment you use. You installed Netbeans, you may as well use it, but you don't gotta. All right, gang, does that make sense? Questions? Comments? Don't be too quiet.
Well, on my program, I noticed that you had like 2,000, I think, for distance. I can't get that.
Okay, show me your driver, your main method. Well, that's interesting. You do call coast twice, so I would have expected it to go 2,000. Go back to your class, your Starship class. We're done once you upload your .java file. If you need help uploading your .java file, let me know.
And I did it here.
Starship, velocity, distance, coast. Well, let's print a message each time we coast. Do a system.out.println. Quote, coasting. At the same just a string. I'm sorry, the word coast.
Oh.
Yeah, if you need to find the .java file, where is it? It's probably in your documents folder under Netbeans projects. Under Netbeans, Lecture A, Source. Does that make sense? I don't know if you can see this, but it's under Documents, Netbeans projects, whatever you called your folder, and Source. And if you have a package, it's in that package. You'll have to go into that subdirectory, but I didn't create a package, so then you can just upload these .java files that you find there.
Well, it is printed twice.
And why isn't the distance increasing each time? This dot distance. And then cut and paste that so that it's after the increment. The whole thing. Move the whole print statement down because we want to increase the distance and then print it out.
After here?
Yeah. I'll never bring the code back so that you could be working on it if you want.
I mean, code 2. What's it called?
In fact, I'll print it out for you.
D2L. Enter. The Chrome. Yeah, the first one, introduction to Netbeans. You just had those two codes that you just found.
interesting, it has 2,000 there.
It's printing nothing.
What's
It's
printing?
printing that, and absolutely nothing. We need one final percent dot
Oh,
two
you
F
finished the code?
there.
Right here?
Yeah, because we have
Upload, then you find those two files.
only two parameters, two placeholders to fill in, and now we have three.
There you go.
There we go. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
No, I was missing something. Okay, thank you.
Work on it, polishing it up, because I'm printing it out. Or I can just put it up. I think we were close. I think all of it was in this is static. So why don't I, here is the source code for the status function. Did you find the file?
Yeah, I've already turned it in.
Okay,
I
good.
just wanted to know if I wanted to save it to my slash drive. It's already been saved on this computer, but I want to save it on my flash drive. So
Here's what I would do, is I would go out to the documents directory, and I would just library documents, and zip back out, go get my level back out and right click and send that to a zip file, or just drag and drop, but yeah, you could just copy it and leave flash drive like that. Yeah.
because I've done Eclipse before and it got really angry if you didn't export it and import it properly.
Right. I like the Eclipse import and export, and I don't think Netbeans does that, so just move the whole project over and it works as well.
What is that character up there after Starship?
Percent, that's a percent sign. Percent S, and then velocity equals percent F. And space distance equals percent F.